I'm not sure about this, Purnima.
What's going on?
So we've redesigned the entire landing page, the onboarding workflow, and the customer checkout experience.
Okay.
But from the analytics, I can't tell which of these redesigns actually moved the needle.
Did you redo them all at once?
That's what I thought I was asked to do.
I think we're going to need to talk about how much to redesign in today's build tip. Welcome to Build, brought to you by Pivotal Tracker. I'm your host, Purnima Vijay Shankar, and I've got a new build tip for you. Today, I'm joined by Leslie Yang, who is a senior product designer at Pivotal Labs. Leslie and I are going to dig into how much to include in a redesign and what you need to do before you start a redesign. So thanks for joining us, Leslie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's first talk about why teams even want to do a redesign.
Yeah. Totally. So the ones that I can think of are three. One is you have your company and you really want to do a brand refresh. You want to be out there in the market and you want people to get excited. The second thing is you want people, as a company, you want to get a leg up on the competition. So you really feel like if I define myself in the market against our competitors, we will have a winning advantage. And the third thing is, you put your product out for a few years and you're feeling like, these workflows are pretty clunky. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure we simplify it and take a step back and look at that too.
I know companies are really eager to do a redesign, but what happens if they jump in too fast?
Totally. There is a lot of hidden risk involved. Okay. The number one thing is that companies can invest a lot of money and time into the visual design and improving that at the detriment of the user experience, and that's always a bad call.
Got it. So how can they avoid doing that?
Sure. So one of the things they can do is take a look at your workflows. If they're already doing really well for your company, don't change them.
Yeah.
Don't fix what's already working really well. And definitely do user research to test to make sure that a redesign is something that people actually would find value in. Mm-hmm. And then you want to make sure that your design patterns are consistent across web and mobile and everywhere else. Mm-hmm. People are able to use the app.
What does that mean, like design patterns are consistent?
Yeah, like design patterns are like the interactions are going to be the same ones you would experience similar in mobile versus like web.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
What's an example of that?
For example, if you're using Yelp, like my experience on Yelp for mobile, if I'm going to see a list of like search results, if I'm on web, I should see something very similar to that.
Got it. So consistent user experience.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. What else?
Let me think. You should definitely work on developing a style guide that will work across all parts of your app.
Great. So if you have those four things nailed down, then it makes sense to start the redesign?
Yeah. It's definitely worth looking at it from that point.
So you mentioned a lot of times you want to revisit those clunky workflows. How can you do that in a way that's not going to end up causing you to go down a rabbit hole?
Oh, definitely. So what you really want to do is work with product to look at your metrics.
Okay.
Find those areas where there's some hidden pains and work on improving those areas first.
Okay. So you would look at like the drop-off points and then go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So one new insight that I learned from this conversation is a lot of people spend time doing visual design versus actually investing in the workflows. Mm-hmm. So how can you make sure that that's not what's happening?
Well, a big thing is you need to look at your data, right? Mm-hmm. So you look at your qualitative data and you look at your quantitative data. And from looking at that, you can figure out where in the user experience you want to improve that experience. And then you work on the visual design last.
Okay. So it's definitely the priority of workflow first, visual design second.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to our initial example where Ronan had, bless his heart, changed a lot of things all at once, right? He redesigned the landing site, he redesigned the onboarding, and finally the checkout. And sometimes it makes sense to do them all at once if you've got the resources. But in his case, things just weren't working out.
Yeah, totally. I think what would really help Ronan in those moments is if he had appropriate metrics for each of those different experiences that he was looking to test and understand.
Yeah. So let's, for example, like the landing site, the metric for the landing site is...
It's just checking to see how many people have signed up for the site. Yeah.
And then for the onboarding...
It's going to looking at like improving the user experience from sign up to becoming an active user.
Right. And then the final checkout is monetize.
Yeah.
And so for Ronan's case, I think where he probably did a lot of redesign within each, like changing a number of elements in the landing site, changing a number of elements within onboarding and finally checkout, he doesn't know within each what's working, but then overall not having those metrics kind of siloed also made it confusing.
Exactly. So in a specific workflow, you want to, if you're going to change something, change one thing at a time, and then have some good metrics to test to see if it's successful or not.
Well, thank you so much, Leslie, for sharing these tips with us today. I know our audience out there is going to get a lot of benefit when they consider doing a redesign next.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Now, Leslie and I would like to know, if you've done a redesign recently, what did you consider redesigning and how did it turn out? Let us know in the comments below this video. Okay, that's it for today's Build tip. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive more episodes of Build and Build tips like this one. And special thanks to our sponsor, Pivotal Tracker, for their help and support in producing this episode. Ciao for now. This episode of Build is brought to you by our sponsor, Pivotal Tracker.